Chapter 5, The Can't Find It Cure. "Morton, dear," said Mrs. Heatherwick, "would you please run upstairs and get me my gold thimble? It is in my work basket, and the work basket is on the little table by the window." "Okay," said Morton cheerfully, putting down his paintbrush right in the middle of painting a picture of a cowboy roping a wild steer. He went up the stairs 2 at a time and was in his mother's bedroom in 4 seconds. As soon as he got inside the room, however, his energy seemed to disappear, and he stood limply gazing like a puppet up at the ceiling. After he had looked at the ceiling for a while, he looked out the window. "Gee, this window has a good view," Morton said as he gazed over the countryside. He could see Mr. Johnson clipping tent caterpillars off his apple trees. He could see Mrs. Greer setting out petunias. He could see Jody Jones sitting on his bed, not cleaning up his room. He could see Sharon Rogers doing figure eights on her roller skates on Willow Street. If a person stayed up by this old window long enough, Morton said, he could learn about everything that is going on in the whole world. Then up the stairs floated his mother's voice. "Morton," she called, "what in the world are you doing? Bring me my thimble." Morton went downstairs and said, "I couldn't find it." "Did you look in my work basket?" asked his mother. "What work basket?" said Morton. "The one on the table by the window," said his mother. "Oh, that one," said Morton, as if his mother's room was a solid mass of work baskets. "Now go up and get me my thimble," said his mother impatiently. "I can't poke this needle through your jeans without it, and I have 4 pairs to patch." So Morton went upstairs again. This time his dog, Tag-Along, met him at the top of the stairs, licked his face, and told him very plainly that something was wrong with him. "What is it, old boy?" said Morton, hugging Tag-Along. "What's the trouble?" Ow, said Tag-Along, holding up his paw and showing Morton the burr that was in between his toes. "Oh, you poor old boy," said Morton. "Here, hold still and I'll get it out for you. There now, isn't that better?" Tag-Along said it was... Sorry, I got distracted. Tag-Along said it wasn't, so Morton looked and saw that he had burrs all over him. "Well," said Morton, going in and getting his mother's silver-backed hairbrush and comb, "we'll just comb all those mean old burrs out, won't we, boy?" Half an hour later, Mrs. Heatherwick came to the foot of the stairs and called, "Morton, where is that thimble?" "Oh, that," said Morton. "I couldn't find it." With a sigh of exasperation, his mother ran upstairs, went into her bedroom, opened her work basket on the little table by the window, and saw that the gold thimble was there in plain sight. She then went out into the hall, took Morton by the ear, led him in, and showed him the thimble. He said, "Well, my gosh, you mean in that work basket?" His mother said, "Is that my silver hairbrush you are holding?" "I guess so," said Morton. "What are you doing with it?" said his mother. "Just taking burrs out of old Tag-Along," said Morton. "Brushing a dog with my silver hairbrush?" shrieked his mother. "Well, yes," said Morton. "It's better than mine for burrs because it has stiffer bristles." "And I suppose you used my comb, too," said his mother. "I tried to," said Morton, "but it pulls Tag-Along's fur, and he doesn't like it." "Morton Heatherwick," said his mother, "you go right out and get me my comb, and don't let me, ever as long as I live, find you using it again for anything." So Morton went out in the hall and called back, "I can't find it." "You can't find it," said his mother. "That's ridiculous. You were just using it." "But it isn't here," said Morton. "Somebody's taken it." "And who would take it?" said his mother. "I don't know," said Morton, "but somebody sure did. A cat burglar, maybe. They can come in a house and you can't hear 'em at all." "If a cat burglar came in this house, Tag-Along would bark," said Mrs. Heatherwick. "Anyway, What would a cat burglar want with a comb with 2 broken teeth filled with dog hairs and burrs?" "I don't know," said Morton, "but sometimes those burglars are kind of crazy and take anything." "There has been no cat burglar in this house," said Mrs. Heatherwick in a very exasperated voice. "There never has been a cat burglar in this house, and there never will be a cat burglar in this house. Now find my comb." Just then Tag-Along got up to go after a fly that was buzzing on the hall window, and there on the floor, where he had been lying, was the comb. "Hey, Mom, here's your comb," said Morton, picking it up and handing it to her with a proud smile. It was laying right there on the floor under old Tag-Along. "It is lying," said his mother. "Now, if you want to continue to take burrs out of Tag-Along, go down in the basement and get his comb and brush. They are on the shelf above the wash tubs, right next to his flea powder and the worm medicine." "Oh, I know," said Morton. "Come on, Tag-Along, old boy. We'll get out those old burrs." They ran down the stairs, and his mother could hear Morton clumping down into the basement. In 2 seconds a shout came up the basement stairs. "Hey, Mom, I can't find Tag-Along's brush. It isn't on that shelf." "It is too," shouted back his mother. "I saw it yesterday. It is right above the wash tubs." So Morton looked on the gardening shelf by the door and couldn't find Tag-Along's brush and comb, but he did see a can of paint he had bought the summer before for his bicycle. "Say, that's what I wanted to do today," he said to Tag-Along. "Paint my bike. I'm going to paint her bright red with silver trimmings. Boy, old Benji Franklin will be jealous. His bike's as rusty as a tin can. Come on, Tag, let's wheel the bike over here under the window so we can see what we are doing." At lunchtime, when Morton came upstairs, his mother said, "Did you get the burrs off Tag-Along?" "Oh, I couldn't find the brush and comb," Morton said, "but I've been painting my bike. It looks swell." "Did you put newspapers on the floor first?" asked his mother. "No," said Morton, "but I'm only painting the top part right now." "Have you spilled any paint?" asked his mother. "Oh, a little," said Morton, "but I wiped it up. See?" He held up his handkerchief, which looked as if he had had a bad nosebleed. "Not your handkerchief!" wailed his mother. "Sure," said Morton, "and I got every drop of paint off the floor." "Well," said Mrs. Heatherwick, "from now on use an old rag to wipe up the paint, and please spread newspapers all over the floor where you're painting. There is a bottle of turpentine in the paint cupboard. Put a little on this old rag and take the paint off your face, out of your hair, and off your arm." "Sure, Mom," said Morton. "I will, as soon as I finish this banana." But of course, when Morton finished his banana, he couldn't find the turpentine. "Mom, where do you say that turpentine is?" he yelled from the basement. "I looked in the fruit cupboard, and it isn't there." "I didn't say it was in the fruit cupboard," his mother said. "I told you it was in the paint cupboard. It is on the top shelf." "It isn't there," he yelled a few minutes later, but fortunately Mrs. Heatherwick was up changing her clothes to go to her ceramics class and couldn't hear him. When she was dressed, she told Morton to go over to Mrs. Beecham's and play with Enterprise while she was gone. He said, "Oh, Mom, I hate to go to the Beecham's. Mrs. Beecham is so darn clean she makes us look at television through the window, and she won't let Tag-Along on her property." "Then why don't you ask Enterprise over here?" Mrs. Heatherwick said. "You could play croquet." "Oh, we can't play croquet," Morton said. "I can't find any of the balls." "They are in the garage," said his mother. "Oh, no, they aren't, Mom," Morton said. "I looked yesterday." So Mrs. Heatherwick said, "Well, why don't you and Enterprise make popcorn then? The electric popper is in the pan cupboard." "Oh, I love popcorn," Morton said. "That's a swell idea, Mom. Goodbye. Have a good time." Mrs. Heatherwick went out to the garage and got in the car. As she backed out, she noticed the croquet balls in a neat row on Mr. Heatherwick's workbench. She sighed and wondered if Morton was going blind. Mrs. Heatherwick usually loved her ceramics class. All of her very best friends attended, and they made so many lovely things. Ashtrays with roses on them, plates with roses on them, bowls with roses on them, cigarette boxes with roses on them, even napkin rings, spoon holders, and match boxes with roses on them. But today was to be the climax of the whole wonderful course. They were going to make just roses. Great big life-size roses, not attached to anything. Not to be used for anything but to be put around the house in artistic places. On the radio, for instance, or on the telephone table, or on the mantel. Places like that. A real ceramic rose would be beautiful anywhere, Mrs. Heatherwick thought. She hummed a happy little tune as she molded her rose. The telephone rang. It was Morton for her. He said, "Where is the popcorn, Mom?" She said, "In the cupboard with the cereals." She went back to her rose, which was beginning to look less and less like a mildewed cabbage. The telephone rang again. It was for Mrs. Heatherwick. Morton said, "I can't find the popcorn, Mom." She said, "It is right next to the shredded wheat and beside the sugar pops. You can't miss it." She went back to her rose. The telephone rang. It was Morton. He said, "I can't find the popcorn popper." She said, "I told you it was in the pan cupboard. It is on the top shelf at the back. Plug it into the outlet on the stove. The popcorn was right where I told you, wasn't it?" Morton said, "Oh, I couldn't find our popcorn, so Enterprise went home and got his. Well, bye, Mom." That was the last call, and so Mrs. Heatherwick presumed that Morton had found the popper. She put a bright pink glaze on her rose and was very proud of the real little thorns she had made. Lou Hopscotch told her it was the prettiest rose in the whole class, and she would bake it in her kiln, and it would be ready to take home and put on her radio by Saturday. Mrs. Heatherwick was as happy as a bee. When she got home, the very first thing she was going to do was go in the living room and decide where the beautiful rose would look the best. But when she got home and went into the living room, she gave a scream and put her hands over her eyes. What appeared to be two black-faced old trappers were crouched over a smoking fire in the fireplace, shaking a greasy skillet. All around them in every direction was an inch-deep carpet of greasy burned popcorn and salt. "What in the world are you doing?" shrieked Mrs. Heatherwick. "Making popcorn," said the voice of Morton from the face of the blackest trapper. "We couldn't find the electric popper, so we built a fire in the fireplace, and we're doing it the old-fashioned way." "Take it out of here right now," said Mrs. Heatherwick grimly, "and bring me the vacuum cleaner." "Gosh, Morton, I gotta go home," Enterprise said, edging toward the door. "You are staying until this mess is cleaned up," said Mrs. Heatherwick. "Well, all right," said Enterprise, taking the hearth broom and swacking at the popcorn so that a piece hit Mrs. Heatherwick in the eye. "Oh, go on home," she said, "and you, Morton, go up to your room. I'll clean this up. It's safer." It took her about an hour to vacuum up all the popcorn, about 3 hours to get the grease stains off her new gray carpet, and about 2 seconds to find the electric corn popper exactly where she had told Morton it was. When Mr. Heatherwick came home, starving and hoping for an apple pie or maybe a hot, fresh chocolate cake, he found his wife bawling in the kitchen. She said, "This is the worst day I have ever had, and I'm sure Morton is going blind." "Oh, my gosh, how awful," said Mr. Heatherwick. "Where is he?" "Up in his room," said Mrs. Heatherwick. So Mr. Heatherwick tore upstairs and burst in on Morton, who was carefully finishing his painting of a cowboy roping a wild steer. "Hi, Dad," he said, not looking up. "Oh, son," said Mr. Heatherwick, "that's a wonderful painting. How do you do it? Do you feel around with your fingers?" "Of course not," said Morton. "I just look at it and paint." "Look at it?" said Mr. Heatherwick. "Can you see?" "Of course I can see," said Morton. "I've got the best eyesight in our room at school. The nurse said so." So Mr. Heatherwick went downstairs and told Mrs. Heatherwick that Morton had the best eyesight in school, and Mrs. Heatherwick told him about the thimble and the comb and Tagalong's brush and comb and the turpentine and the popcorn popper and the croquet balls. "Well," Mr. Heatherwick said, "let's see if he can find a switch." "Oh, not that," said Mrs. Heatherwick. "Not physical punishment, Justin. There must be a better way." "What about Mrs. Pigglewiggle, then?" said Mr. Heatherwick. "That's it," said Mrs. Heatherwick. "That's the answer. I'll call her right now." Stay tuned for part 2.